We're going to go through a shoulder external rotation, continuous tension set on the rings. So with this exercise, I'm going to create an isometric contraction of trying to internally rotate into the rings throughout the time, whilst I'm actually moving my body parts or my arm in various positions to change the stimulus on what I'm trying to target. So a few variables that we'll be able to play with this exercise is shoulder abduction, taking my elbow out to the side, even going further than shoulder height. You'll probably find you'll have some degree of elbow rotation that you'll be able to play and manipulate, and also how much you're performing the exercise with the elbow relatively closed or more open. So to give you an example, I've got a pair of rings kind of set at this sort of height for myself. This is something that you can play height-wise with, maybe a little higher, a little lower might suit you better. So what I want to do is take my shoulder external rotation towards end range. So I'm going to come towards a position close to this where I'm feeling a line of tension on the front side of the shoulder. So I set up, I take a step forwards, and I'm biasing both shoulders towards end range, shoulder external rotation. I'm starting to feel tension on the front of the shoulders now. So I'm creating now a contraction of pales rotating into the rings as if I was trying to do this motion. And then while I'm holding that effort, I'm going to start to move myself in and out of that position slightly. So it's almost like a hover back and forth while I'm maintaining that tension. And as I'm going through this motion now, I'm starting to also explore various positions. So as mentioned before, I can start to lift the elbows up a little bit more, take the shoulder into abduction, and I can just keep on going. I intentfully take my time, I move slow, and the reason I'm moving slow is just to pay attention. Every time I change position, that will change in terms of what's being stressed, what's being lengthened, what is under tension. I could also explore grip. So I was holding a normal grip earlier on onto the rings, and now I've transitioned into a false grip here. Again, I could go further forwards, play with the elbows being slightly more open, and once again, that will change slightly what is being stressed, what is having to work. Here I could be closing the elbows a bit more. And even to a degree, I can play with how I'm moving my shoulder blade as well. So the intent with this exercise, constantly maintaining an isometric contraction of resisting the rings by internal rotation. And as I'm going through that motion, I'm exploring various angles so I can stretch this joint in many different places. One little thing that helps as well is to be mindful of where your elbows are. If you go through all of these movements and you just let your elbows move back and forth kind of freely, you might find that you actually have a hard time creating tension where we want it. So it actually helps to try and think about, as you go through all these movements, actually to try and keep the elbow relatively fixed so that what you can actually do is promote this movement, external rotation, independently against your shoulder blade in whichever position you're in. So wherever I am, I always like to think that that elbow stays in its place and my shoulder is just rotating independently from my shoulder blade.